My name's Frank Barham. I'm the chair of the Champaign Tea Party.
All right.
And some of the observations that you were making about tea parties, I wouldn't agree with. For one thing, you were talking about tea parties throughout the country where they'll have people that come to the tea party rallies with signs with swastikas or disparaging images of Obama and different things like that. Our Tea Party, and we're affiliated with Illinois Tea, and we're also affiliated with Tea Party Patriots, which is the largest Tea Party organization nationally. They have 2,300 Tea Party organizations throughout the country that affiliate themselves with them. We're all grassroots organizations. We govern from the bottom up. They don't tell us what to do. We're each independent of what goes on with this. But when we have somebody at one of our Tea Party rallies that comes with a sign that's disparaging and a negative thing about an individual, we ask them to leave the Tea Party at that time. And there are also plants that come, the opposition that come with these signs. Some of these people come in with swastikas and things that are not part of the Tea Party. They're part of opposition that have come here and done this. In regards to what we're all about, financial situation is just one of the things. We do want fiscal responsibility. We also want adherence to the Constitution. But our biggest thing is that politicians, Democrats and Republicans, do not listen to the constituents that send them to Washington, D.C. And that's our biggest thing, is to get people that are going to go to Washington and Springfield. They're going to represent the people that send them there, not the special interests. And that's basically what we are. But we are all patriotic, and we don't have any racists in our organizations. We throw them out when they are there. We don't tolerate and we don't endorse anything like this.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Let me just say, I mentioned the sort of the extremist images largely by way of saying it's clear that they exist, but are they predominant? I don't know. But the one really systematic study found they aren't. So, I don't want anyone to leave with the impression that my message was Tea Party movement is strongly marked by racism. It's an allegation, and I think by and large it's not proven. I'm glad to hear you say locally it's not present at all, or if it's there, it's drummed out. Two more. It reminded me of two more things. The Democratic and Republican candidates for Senate in Colorado, which is another of the close races where the Republicans seem to be well ahead. The Democrat maybe is catching up in later polls. We're asked about this. The Republican there, Buck, is has had more endorsements from Tea Parties. And he said he's been to over 800 events and seen no sign of anything you would characterize as racist. The Democrat said, I haven't either. I've been to lots of events. So, my sense is that people who have really been to lots of events would tell you that even if you can find a couple of photos of someone with a swastika, it's not at all typical, which is your message as well. Oh, the one other thing on this, I keep going back to this report that said that there is a sort of a distasteful element to the Tea Party. So on the very first page, in the preface to that report, they mentioned an incident from 2009, I guess it was. Members of the Black Caucus were walked through an anti-healthcare legislation protest, and afterwards declared that they had racist epithets shouted at them, and people spat at them, and people were arrested. And this is an age where everything is being recorded all the time, so it turned out there was a fair amount of cell phone video footage of this, and very quickly a lot of the video footage was put up saying, listen closely, it's not the entire experience, but this is 2 minutes of video footage of these congressmen walking through, and you can't hear any mention of any of the alleged racist epithets. Nobody was arrested. The Park Police confirmed that. So there was this sort of immediate internet battle about what happened. And I think it's striking that this report saying that the Tea Party does have something to apologize was referring to something that I think in some respects has already been played out as a debate, and at least in the theory of where there's smoke, there's fire. There was, from the video footage, there was no fire there. Most of the members who initially said that they had people, that someone was arrested or someone spat on them and backed off and said, no, okay, that's not what happened. But even though you can't hear it in the audio, people did shout the N-word at us. But on a couple of different recordings at the time, you really can't see that. So, more questions?
My name is Justine Shepline. I wanted to ask you a question which goes beyond what happens on November 2nd. I'm right. Two questions. Number one, all of the early voting is like taking the balloon and just making it nothing. All of the early voting, to me, dilutes the whole significance of the voting experience. It's like, who cares? And secondly, I would like to ask you if the Republicans do gain in the midterm elections, who do you see as the big winners in the Republican Party going forward to 2012?
Okay, so two questions. The first was about early voting and whether it doesn't detract from Election Day and deflate the whole experience of Election Day. Second was what happens, who are the big winners if the Reaps gain? So on the early voting thing, I agree with you. It's more and more common. Now, most states in the country now have convenience voting, either no excuse absentee voting or early voting. It was introduced in an effort to improve turnout, and mostly it hasn't succeeded. Mostly it seems to cannibalize the electorate. You just take people who would have voted Election Day and you move them forward. So you change when people vote and how they vote, but you don't actually get very many new people voting. That's not, I would qualify that if this were an academic conference to be more careful and say there's some sign of marginal increases in some cases. But there's really been a very, very steady movement towards making it easier and easier to vote in more ways around the country, and it hasn't drummed up the increase in turnout that was predicted. What are the costs? Well, you mentioned the one that early voting has an obvious cost and benefit. The cost is you lose out the kind of sense of this being a civic ritual. That part of one reason people don't vote is they don't feel that they have a duty to vote. They think, yeah, I'll vote if I want to, but I'll watch Monday Night Football if I want to, and they're just choices I make. And a lot of people think that's not the right way to understand voting in democracy. People should regard it as a civic duty, as part of being what you owe the state. And to make not just to make a frivolous vote, but to make a serious and careful judgment. So people who think that way are unhappy about low turnout, and I think early voting does precisely that. It makes it more like filling out an SAT exam or something than it does taking part in the excitement and the ritual aspects of voting. Absentee voting actually bothers me even more, though, because absentee voting, the funny thing with absentee voting is it's not secret. We introduced the secret ballot in the late